Okay, so in part 3, we're going to be creating key variables and objects that we'll need for a web app when we are programming functions to actually draw on the canvas. So today is all about basically making containers for important information that our program will need to work. You're not going to be able to draw shapes by the end of this tutorial, but this work is really important that we do it carefully and we understand it well. So you should have already completed the Khan Academy tutorials about variables and objects. That's really important practice for what we're going to be doing here to make sure that you understand that. So the first thing that we're going to do to actually program our variables and objects is we need to add the script tags before the closing HTML tag. So let's set it up. Script tag. And we will write all of our JavaScript in between these two script tags. So then the next step is going to be to create our first object. So we're going to make an object called shape. This object is going to store all of the important information that we'll need to know about the shapes that are being drawn when we're writing our functions later. So this is just a container for information about a shape. It does not actually draw the shape. So to set this up, we're going to use a similar syntax to when we declare a variable. It'll look slightly different. So we'll say var, and the name of the object is going to be shape, lowercase. Capitalization is very important. And then curly brackets. Give some space in there, and then at the end of the curly bracket we're going to put a semicolon. So in between the curly brackets is where we'll write all of the properties and give some starting values for these properties for our shape object. As we write these out, I'll explain what their purpose is. So the first one that we're going to have is called status, and we're going to set it to be false by default. Status is just representing whether or not we are drawing a shape. So if status is false, that means we're not currently drawing a shape. And if status is set to true, then that means we are in the middle of drawing a shape. And that's how we're going to know whether or not to draw a line or whether to draw a dot when someone is clicking on the canvas. The next property that we're going to add is going to be color. And we are going to set this to just one of the colors that you have in your palette. I'm going to go ahead and use my blue color up here. And then we need a comma. And that'll be the color of the shape. We're also going to add shadow color. So shadow color will be the outline of the shadow of the shape, which gives it more of a cutout effect. And you can make that whatever color you want. I'm going to make it a blue color, a slightly darker blue. Don't forget your comma. The next property is going to be the start x. We'll set that to 0. This represents the starting x location of the shape. And this will help us to know whether or not we are close to the starting point when we're clicking around the screen and we should close the shape, or if we should just continue it. So I'm going to also add start y. And then the very last one is going to be something called coords, and this is an array that is going to store the coordinates for a given shape that we're drawing. So the x and y coordinates that make up that shape. So coords, we're just going to set to an empty array right now by setting it to some empty square brackets. And that's going to be your shape object. The next step that we're going to do is just basically a time saver. So right now I'm on step 8, which when you want to get HTML elements to use in your JavaScript from your HTML document, you have to write out this long line of code that's called document. If I can spell document dot get element by ID, and then you insert the ID of the element you want to get. And every time that you want to get an element and do something with it, you have to write out this long line of code. So to save us time, we can actually use a variable to store this longer line of code. And then anytime we want to get the element, we can just use the shorter variable name. So we're going to do this for menu, save, clear, and my canvas. So to get started, what we'll first do, I'm going to delete that, is we will declare a variable var, set menu, we'll do menu first, equals document dot get element by ID, and capitalization counts here. So get is lowercase, the E in element is uppercase, the B in by is uppercase, the I in ID is uppercase, but the D is lowercase. And then we're going to do parentheses, quotes, single quotes, and then the name of the element, or the ID of the element, which is menu. You're going to do this same pattern, but for clear, save, and my canvas. For the clear button, we're going to call the variable button clear. For the save button, we'll call it button save. For the canvas, we'll call it just canvas. Okay, make sure you save your progress. So these are, again, are just going to save us time. Instead of writing out this long line of code that's on the right hand side of the equal sign, we can just use menu. The next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to declare two variables that we'll need to use in our program later, but that we're not going to give values right now. So the two variables are going to be current x and current y. And when you are just declaring variables and not assigning a value to them, you just write var, the variable name, and then a semicolon. So do that for current x and current y. Save your progress. Now we're going to start setting up our canvas so that it's ready to be drawn on. One of the first things we need to do is just set the width and the height of the canvas. We want the canvas to be the width of the entire browser window and the height of the entire browser window. So to do this, we can use a pretty simple line of code. Again, instead of writing out this really long document dot get element by ID my canvas, we can just say canvas dot, and the property we want to change is width equals window dot inner width, and this will get the inner width of the window into the canvas to that value. The next thing that we're going to do is set canvas dot height equals window dot inner height, semicolon. The next thing that we will do is actually create a drawing object for the canvas and then fill the canvas with a background color. We're going to actually do this using a built-in HTML object called getContext, and this has properties built into it that's going to make drawing on the canvas easier to program. So I want you to think about the next couple lines of code as things we would need to set up just to use the canvas element correctly. So the first thing we'll do is declare a variable ctx, var ctx equals canvas dot get context 2D is what we're going to set it to, and then a semicolon. The next thing we'll do after that is we actually want to set a property called fill style that will set the color that the canvas will fill in for the background color. So if you want a different background color for your drawing app, you're going to change the hex value that's here. You can also use RGBA codes if you want. I'm going to use an example that has a hex value. So ctx dot fill style equals quotation marks pound f 5 f's 1 3 semicolon. Save your work. The last thing we need to do is actually draw basically a rectangle on the canvas that will be the canvas height and the canvas width, and that will set a background color. So ctx dot fill rect 0 0 canvas dot width canvas dot height. So this is the starting X and Y location, and then the ending, the bottom right hand corner X and Y location for drawing a rectangle. Save your work, refresh your page, and it should work to set the background color. Now if it's not working, as we can see it's not working in mine, that means that you have an error in your code. So I'm going to go debug that and then come back and talk to you about what I find. Okay, so after some digging I found out what my mistake was. Feel kind of silly. So when I was creating my shape, I did not use the correct syntax. So I should have var shape equals, and that will fix my problem. And now I have a background color for my drawing app. So the takeaway is to make sure that you read your code really carefully. That was something that was easy for me to breeze over. It did take me a couple minutes to realize what my mistake was.